All right, you guys, we are going to wrap up our book, Five Levels of Leadership, talking about the highest level of leadership, which is the pinnacle. And this is where we should all want to be heading. I know as diamonds, we talk about it a lot, just leaving an impact and a legacy. And he talks about replacing yourself, like when you're gone, who is going to be there? And um I just really love where he talked about what separates organizations from other ones. Like they stand the test of time, they're always growing, and that's simply leadership, just having leadership. And if you don't have leaders, then that is death to your business, your company, because you can't do it all on your own. You're going to get tired. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to need your leaders to bring fresh new ideas to you when you don't have any. That's why he says to recruit up, to get better leaders, people who are better than you, and let them soar in what they're doing. And that is level 5 leadership, is having lots of level 4 leaders who can manage their plexus business. They can manage what they're doing and do a really good job at it. And we've obviously given you guys and talked about ideas on how to grow those leaders and do that. And that is the key. If you want to be a level 5 leader, and I thought it was really encouraging that he says he can't really think of any downsides for a level 5 leader. Like there's nothing really, not necessarily nothing hard, but you have to have enough maturity to get to this level that it doesn't feel like there's any downsides. And I thought that was really good and really encouraging. And the biggest thing that I took away from just the whole thing overall was personal growth, basically growing yourself. If you, that is the downfall of the level 5 leadership, and that's of any level, is thinking that you've arrived. And I think that's anything in life to be said. If you think you've arrived and you don't need to be on calls or be on book clubs, or obviously this doesn't apply to you guys because you're here, you're wanting to grow, but who in your team, who in your downline thinks that they don't need to hear this? These are the questions that I ask myself when I see who shows up every week and those who don't. And it's a legit question that you want to ask yourself as you look at your business. Who do you have? And before Jamie and Sal share, I don't know where it was on here, but he talked about how he had lost his focus and his vision, and they hit this big goal with his mentorship, and he gave everyone a ring, and they kind of stopped growing because he didn't really have another goal after that. Like that was it. Like that's where he was. So whether your goal was ruby or emerald or diamond, do you sit there like, okay, I don't know what to do next other than to help these people to get to where I am? Do you have a strategic plan to continue moving everybody forward instead of just, all right, here I am? But I love that he said that he had lost focus at one time. Even an amazing leader like John Maxwell is like, all right, got to refocus. What's going on here? This isn't working. Things are slowing down. All right, guys, what do you have? I just kind of am wherever, so we can move through.
I think we see that just going off of what you just said. I think we see that a lot in what we do easily, in terms of, hitting a goal, hitting a rank, and feeling maybe the need to just kind of breathe and settle in there and just enjoy where you're at for a little bit, which is not a bad thing in and of itself, but it's when it extends to being complacent, being comfortable, not striving to grow further. I remember when I hit Emerald, was it? And Phallin, I remember her asking me because I thought it was like the weirdest question in the world. And she asked me, okay, are you ready? Are you ready to, you know, go again? Like, are you ready to keep going? Are you ready to hit Sapphire? Are you ready to, because it was like a big feat, right? It was a big rank up. It was a big accomplishment. And she's like, okay, are you ready to keep going? And I was like, that's a dumb question. Like my goal is an emerald, my goal is diamond. Like, I just remember thinking it was a really weird thing that she asked me that, but I, in hindsight now know why, because it's so easy to get in a space, even if you think that you're not putting the brakes on, even though you don't think you're changing anything, it can be easy to shift a little bit, and shifting just a little bit can all of a sudden veer you off course. You imagine your path, and even if you get just a tiny bit off your path, the longer you go, the farther you can be away from where you want to go, and veer you off from your goals. So it was wise of her to ask that question. And it's something that, we see in what John Maxwell and experience in what John Maxwell talks about here. Something that he mentions in the very beginning, I think that is so important is it's just the top of 234 here, but he talks about empowering people and having just a large team, creating a large team of leaders, right? And developing an abundance mindset. And when he talks about that, he says, even when it isn't, he doesn't even say even if, he says, even when a leader might step down or walk away or retire, he says, whatever it may be, even when a leader might, not be there anymore, there are still so many other leaders ready and able to step up. And that is what that looks like when you're at the level 5 leadership in terms of creating an organization, creating leaders who are creating leaders. And it's knowing, having that abundance mindset, knowing that not everything is pinned on and relying on one person succeeding. So kind of having that one rock star under you thinking, okay, I just got to get that person to the next level. And oh, what if that person quits ever? Or what if, and kind of having a scarcity amongst that. There's no scarcity mindset when you have an abundance mindset, knowing that one, there's several leaders, but the ability to develop leaders is unlimited. It's not this finite, oh, I have one or two people and I won't be able to develop more. So it's having an abundance mindset when it comes to developing leaders.
I just want to add one thing too in the first couple of pages there of that section. Um, I I think what I took away overall from kind of a overall theme of all of it is, sorry if you guys can hear that music in the background. Cameron's playing guitar in the basement, but the overall theme I feel like is we're not here for ourselves. We're here to serve others. We're here to, that's what John Maxwell has done his entire life. He has modeled that so well. And we're here to serve others. And I think that is just something we have to remember on our leadership journey. It takes time to get to level 5, to the pinnacle. It really does. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of time. But when you're serving others, you're going to get there faster. And so, a question he asked is, or a quote he had in here from this Larry Bossidy guy, you know, how am I doing as a leader? You can ask yourself that. But then he says right there, the answer is how the people you lead are doing. That's how you're doing as a leader, how the people you lead are doing. So, how are they doing? Are they learning? Are they growing? Are they managing conflict well? Are they initiating change? All of that, right? That's a really good question to ask ourselves and the people that we're leading on our team. And then, he says the 3 phases of this leadership journey: learn, earn, and return. And I think if you can remember those 3 and focus on those 3 and do those well, then you'll get to that level 5 leadership pinnacle point, right? But you have to be constantly learning and earning and then serving other people and returning that and developing new leaders and all of that. So, yeah.
And it's a
Um,
choice, just real quick off what you just said there. It's a choice to keep moving from the learn, earn, and return. That's what stuck out to me the most when what John was talking about, because it's easy to get to one spot and to just, again, be content to stay there. That's the word he uses. I'd say complacent even. So you don't have to progress. Not everyone will progress from one phase to the other. So it's going to be a constant, continual choice to move forward. Sorry, Val, go ahead.
yeah, I think it's definitely a continual choice, and to realize when you're not moving forward, which can happen most often as you get into management mode and you have a lot of people coming in and you're excited and you're helping all of them. And then you're like, wait, what am I doing? Or are we just going with the flow. That can happen in momentum too. As a leader, you want to always be looking ahead. So I would say that this last month, we definitely had momentum. People getting their free reset. People are excited about the cruise and just looking ahead and planning like, all right, who am I getting on the phone with for New Year's goals? What are people's goals? And that's why I loved what John Maxwell said when he lost sight of having a goal and moving forward, then he noticed things basically start to die down and he was losing momentum. So page 238 and 39, I love where he talked about Jim Collins in several of his books many times, but how the mighty fall. An entitled mindset bolstered by arrogance. He's talking about leaders who get entitled. Success is viewed as deserved rather than I don't know what that word is, fleeting or even hard earned in the face of daunting odds. People begin to believe that success will continue almost no matter what the organization decides to do or not do. And not sure if you guys are at that level in your business yet, or if that's just something that happens like emerald, sapphire, diamonds. So rubies, you can be thinking ahead to like, okay, knowing to not start coasting. You don't want to coast. You want to continually have those goals and continually look ahead. And make sure your decisions are making an impact for your business. If you're a leader, you cannot make decisions with only you and your personal interests in mind. I'm always thinking of that when I'm trying to make decisions for myself. And how does this duplicate with my family, with my kids, with my business? No matter what I'm doing, I'm like, how is this going to duplicate? If I don't want my leaders doing it, then I shouldn't be doing it. Or what I want them doing, I should be doing it too. If you're through learning, you're through. I circled that little bullet point there. Just as a reminder to always be growing. You guys have anything on any of those pages? Mine starts back up on 243.
I mean, just the recap of 2 and 3, I think are also important, but obviously you've read that, but kind of believing your own press. So that's just kind of like thinking you're above, whether that comes to learning, whether that comes to you're better than lower ranks or other people or, whatever it is. So he mentions at some other point in the book, but the importance of being confident. Oh, he does say it right there too. Be confident, but be humble. So it's that fine line of you can have confidence while also remaining humble, which is incredibly important. And then, of course, the losing focus, which we've kind of talked about with the coasting and things like that. But I underlined, I think it's super important to just note that no matter where you're at level 5 leadership, the importance of being focused on vision and purpose, like it doesn't stop where you've like hit this level 5 and you have it figured out, or you just intrinsically have the gifts or the skills at this level. Like things, it still takes work. It still takes intentionality to have that vision and that drive and passing that along to other people. And it's not just something that is a going through the motions kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I got now.
All right. So this was really interesting to me on page 244. Being at the pinnacle level requires great skill and intentionality. It's even more difficult to develop leaders who will devote themselves to developing other leaders instead of just leading. So that was a really interesting pause, okay, what is actually the difference between actually developing people and leading people? Because I think that's what most people think leadership is, all right, I'm going to lead this person. I'm going to tell them to get on team calls. I'm going to model IPA for them. But that is not developing someone. And he goes right into that. And I underlined stuff on working on people's strengths. He said he spent a lot of time counseling people, but to his great frustration, he saw little improvement in people. And I thought that was really interesting too, because I think that can often happen is you get stuck in, or we get stuck in counseling people and they have their problems and we're trying to help them through their whatever area they're stuck in and get them through that. And I think sometimes you will naturally become unstuck once they get good at something else or as they continue in personal growth. Instead of, if somebody's a really, really good recruiter, help them with the recruiting. Maybe you develop their people that they're bringing in. I know many diamonds who have done that because maybe their level one just couldn't figure out leadership or leading, but also thinking, how can I grow this person beyond this without becoming their counselor and just focusing on how they can't do this and how they need to learn to do this. And they're just not comprehending it. And their business is dying in the meantime because they're not doing the things that they were naturally good at. And usually that will be what they're good at the beginning. That's going to be very natural to them. And I think especially as diamonds, we can say that we work in our strengths and then our weak areas, they're not so they become smaller and smaller as we continue to grow, but we're not sitting here beating ourselves up or our leaders up. We're focusing on what they're really good at. And then he talks about seeing people not as others or themselves, they see themselves, but as they could be, and just being that person to bridge the gap. And what does that look like without recreating the entire person and seeing something that's absolutely not there and you just made it up in your head? But what strengths do they have that you can see are there, but they're buried or they're hidden under maybe fears? That would be developing someone without focusing on their weaknesses, just seeing what is there, but maybe there's a little something on the surface that's holding them back from their full potential in that area. And you can even develop people in their strengths. You can always get better at your strengths. And he said that's his favorite way for people to develop leaders is to interview other leaders. And then they're like, whoa, I guess I'm not doing as good as I thought I was. But just learning how to develop that in themselves.
I think it's a good, he mentions this later in the book, but I'm just thinking about this now as Phallin's talking, but he reminds us that we've all started at level one, right? We've all had to start from the bottom and grow through things. So when we are at that point and doing the things that Phallin's talking about here, it's not necessarily having every person, like, we have to remember they have to go through all these levels too, right? We're not jumping them to level 4 leadership or whatever it is. And sometimes that can happen where I think sometimes, in terms of trying to throw them in the deep end with leadership or throw everything at someone. But it's okay to baby step through that. It's okay to help someone move, starting at that level 1 and move forward from there. So, you can be very successful helping a lot of people move forward through 1 or 2. And if you get some of the level 4s, that's fantastic. And, obviously you work from that to help grow from there, but it's not a requirement to, in terms of getting to diamond, having to have, okay, I have to have like all this team of level 4 and 5 leaders. Like that's not how that happens realistically, typically, right? We're all kind of learning and growing together, and you're just helping someone, and he mentions this later too, it's seeing the potential in people and being able to close that gap between what is and what could be for someone. So if you can do that for someone and close that gap just a little bit more and help them step into more of what they are capable of, because so many people do not see for themselves what they are actually capable of. And I know that from experience. I've talked about that a lot, but I would not be here today if it wasn't for my upline telling me what they saw in me, telling me what I am capable of, helping me take those next steps forward with what to lean into, what to do that's uncomfortable, what I can be successful in, whatever that is. I needed that verbally said or demonstrated or, kind of encouraged to move forward in those things. And I did it, but I didn't just intrinsically come up with that on my own. I had a lot of insecurities, I didn't have that vision for myself, but you can provide that for other people. So level 5 leaders can have that insight and that vision and close that gap for people.
I'm just only just that's so good. And I think, just on these pages here with 2, 3, 4, 5, create an inner circle, do things for the organization that only level 5 leaders can do, plan for your succession, leave a positive legacy. We all talk about that a lot. We really do. We talk about this is a legacy business and what that will look like. And I love that he points that out. And just like Jamie was just saying, so important, you guys, because bridging that gap and getting to that point, I think is a lot of vision casting and like seeing what she just said, seeing in people what they don't see in themselves, because I will 100% agree with that. I can easily see a gift in my leaders that they cannot see themselves. It is hard sometimes to even call out our own gifts or see it as a gift or something that is positive that we can move forward with or whatever, and that's hard sometimes to see that yourself, but I can look and see it. So you have to call that out in them. You have to help them see that and then help them develop that and vision cast for them and what that looks like. And also you have to be an example too, and you have to show up and do it as well, because you cannot expect your people and your leaders to come do this if you're not modeling that, if you're not going before and showing that same, always growing, always, being visible and that sort of thing. So I think, it's important to keep the vision in front of people. I needed that. Jamie needed that. I know Lori helped Phallin with that, right? It really is important to keep encouraging people to use their gifts that they have if they don't see it and don't feel like they can. Like, I will never forget, the first time that I had to do a team call, Phallin Tiffany asked me and Chris to do a team call because we were just flying through the ranks and had double ranked. And I don't remember if we were golds or rubies. I can't remember. I could probably find that call somewhere, but little did I know. I mean, I thought if I would, if you were to ask me then, I would say that's when my leadership journey began in Plexus. That's what I would have said. But now I know that's not true. My leadership journey began the second I enrolled my first person and started helping them, right? And so that's where my leadership journey really took off. But then, I did a hard thing and did that team call. It was absolutely terrifying. And I'll never forget the feelings I had doing that. And did I ever want to do it again? No, I never wanted to do that again. It was so nerve-wracking, but I did. And lead them all the time now. It's not nerve-wracking anymore. But it's just so cool to read this book and look back on my leadership journey and Jamie's and Phallin's, and we all have them. You guys all have them too. You're going to look back and see your leadership journey and what it looked like, and all of these things that are scary and hard and that just take grit and growth and icky stuff sometimes is so part of it. It's so part of your journey and what's to come and helping others on your team that are coming behind you going through the same thing, right? It's all so good. It's all so good. So just remember that too, as you're going through this leadership journey, and that this is part of it. This is part of you getting really good as a leader and on your way up to a level 5. Okay.
I love that, Sal. And I remember your first call. It's so funny. It's like forever ago, but I still remember that. Okay, so do things for the only organization that only a level 5 leader can do. And you guys can be practicing all of this now too, just like we are. Value people. This is page 249. Value people, continue to grow, practice the golden rule, be authentic, exhibit good values, and live out the right priorities. And I thought that was a really good list. He also talked a bit about intuition, and I think this is actually probably one of the hardest things for me is because I have learned a lot on leadership just through intuition because I don't know, it just comes natural to me. Probably because I'm a firstborn. I don't know. But he said that often a hunch is all we have to rely on to make a timing decision. And it can be difficult to explain, but people are more likely to listen to someone who is a level 5 leader. So he says people are apt to listen to hard facts and respect the point of view of the person who expresses them. It doesn't Intuition doesn't prove much weight until you have a proven track record, basically, is what he says. So if you are like that and you just have this intuition about things that need to happen, continue to say those things and let your track record build itself. As you're saying these things to your team, because I know we have a lot of natural leaders on here too. When you develop a leader, you gain a leader and all of his followers. And that's one way to see if you have someone who is a natural leader. And I know we have many of them on here. And not to say that you can't grow in these areas if you're not, but if you have somebody who is, I think it's a sign to be like, okay, I need to up my leadership, because a natural leader is not going to want to listen to someone who's a lower leadership than them, especially. I mean, that's hard for anybody, but someone who is a natural leader, they definitely will notice all of the reasons to not listen to somebody. I see some of you smiling because you know how it is. Okay, so page 259, he made this list of the people who are being developed that are in his inner circle. Integrity. These are things he's intentionally developing in people that are in his inner circle. Integrity, vision, influence, passion, servanthood, confidence, problem solving, communication, creativity, teamwork, attitude, self-discipline. If you just want a list because you're like, I don't even know where to begin, start with this. How are you developing this in people and working them through hitting their goals and all of those things in Plexus? You guys have anything on that before we kind of talk about these teachable moments? That's the next section. No, okay. So teachable moments often come as a result of levers in their lives. Is that word levers, levers? I don't know. I'm having a hard time with the words tonight here. And they occur in people's lives when they hurt enough to have to, learn enough that they actually want to. So if they learn enough, they have to grow, they want to grow, or they receive enough that they are able to. And I thought that was really interesting too, because sometimes we're not able to do what we want until we've actually received those things ourselves. He said to set up a time with pen and paper to identify your own crucial moments. I underlined a few of these, and you guys can go through this yourselves, but cloud breakers, the experiences that lift leaders higher, allowing to see things as they could be. I thought that was interesting. And he said he began to visit large churches. And I think this is where sometimes an experience will change you, whether it's Ruby retreat, leaders retreat, going to Super Saturday, or going to Jamie's house. There are pivotal moments in your business and in your team's business when you just see things differently. And the only way to do that is to get out of your comfort zone, to do things, to take a class, to work with someone new, to friend a new group of people. So I thought those were just kind of interesting to look over. And then he talks about interviewing other leaders, and then this is kind of a guide. Do you guys have anything for this on being like the best level 5 leader? Page 267.
I mean, I just had some random things, but I don't know how quick we want to move through here because we're at the end. But I mean, he talks about the inner circle, which I think is, I mean, that can be briefly mentioned, but I think it's important for a lot of things. You hear about that a lot if you've been around Plexus at all, in terms of you are, most like the 5 people you surround yourself with, as that in terms of influence, but then your inner circle itself. I thought it was very inner circle being, the people that he has, I mean, intentionally selected in this sense. I thought it was really neat to see that he has specifically asked these things from his inner circle. And he lists the things there on page 267. So to not only have the people there that you can trust, that can be your people to lift you up, but also to tell you the truths, to encourage you, to help you be better and strive to be better. But to be very intentional with that relationship in terms of how you're helping each other grow. And he's very intentional in that.
So I liked this right here, you guys, before we open for questions. This was really just an overview of the levels. I'd rather have time for questions than go over that again. But I really like on page 283, if you guys have the same book as me, and I like charts. I like to be able to visually see all of the things all at once. And he talks about industrious, and then what does that mean? Loyalty. Looking at yourself, your inner circle, your leaders, people that you want to work with. What traits are you not willing to falter on? Loyalty is pretty important to me. I feel like you really want a loyal person, especially in network marketing. You want to find loyal leaders, people who are going to stick with something, not people who are flaky. And obviously, if someone was flaky in the past, they can change those character traits, stuff like that. But really looking at who you want to spend your time developing. And I talk about that all the time. Like you have to like your people. And if these are the traits that they have, then what's holding you back from intentionally developing someone? You guys ready to go into questions? Yep.
One thought I wrote this down at the beginning. The book in and of itself, and it talks about 5 here. I mean, it's really, he mentioned several times, it's not about us, it's about other people, and it's about this legacy that we're leaving behind. So well, reading that whole chapter, I'm just like over and over thinking like, what an honor it is to really put yourself in a spot where you are continuing to move forward in a way that you can influence and help and change and impact somebody else's life. And that the fact that, I mean, this applies to all areas of life, this applies to people in general, but the fact that we can utilize Plexus in this way to grow and develop our leadership and make an impact with people and create leaders in this business. Unless you're in this, people have no idea all the intricacies. I said that wrong, of this business, all the levels and all of what this all entails. So it is an honor, and just very grateful for this team and this business. And I hope you guys see that as something to strive for and as an honor as well.
Yeah, I think it is an honor. And I think that the desire from the team just to leave a legacy, and to make an impact, and being able to do that through leadership is why I love this book. This is a book. I read it when I first became a diamond, and I actually did not like it. I thought it was really hard to read and hard to understand. So if you feel that way, you're not alone. But I love it now. I'm like, this is my new favorite to recommend to people on just leadership in general. So I want to ask you guys a question before we open it up for questions, and you can be thinking of any questions that you have. But I'm just curious if anybody would like to share, what are you guys doing right now? Like, do you have a strategy, or how are you developing leaders? And what's working for you, or maybe what's not working, but what are you guys doing right now to develop leaders? And this is just a curiosity question and a question to give everyone else like ideas on what they can be doing practically.
know y'all probably wouldn't think of it like this, but one way I try to help out as leadership side is okay, I'll just start kind of from the beginning. I've been picking up too many darn cases of water, and I go through like 4 to 6 cases in a month by myself. So, as being a leader, I've been trying to find what is better for me. So, if someone eventually comes to me and asks, hey, what do you use? What works better for you? Because I'm tired of bringing in cases of water as well. I'm just thinking outside of the box about different things.
So how do you what is working for you to bring in the water? What are you teaching people?
So I'm in the process of switching over to either I may screw this up is I believe it's called borax or either Berkey, and I'm finding out that the borax water filtration system is so much easier. You don't have to carry cases of water. You're saving so much money. It they've tested the filtration system for over 20 years. The and holy crud, when I went through it, there was like a million different things that they their fil- tested through their filtration system. And going into further depth, the system, like I said, is similar to Berkey, but with that, it goes into just 2 filters alone will filter 12,000 gallons of water.
So basically, you're just taking the information that you've learned and you're sharing it with other people.
Yes, and
Which would
trying to
be a
help them
leader.
save
Yeah.
money too.
Yeah. Definitely want to be passing on what we're learning to our people, which is why we encourage people in their Plexus business to make training videos, to go live, to even share and show up on your stories or on your Facebook posts, adding value. Definitely important. Does anybody else have anything that they're doing in their business?
I'll share something that I actually stopped doing. I took myself out of management mode because I was not creating leadership well by constantly answering the questions for them, hand delivering the information to them in a sense, like just asking more questions to get them to go find it. It also took a big weight off of me, just feeling that pressure of like, oh, I have to answer them, I have to. And you do find people take great initiative and they learn better, which is then duplicatable. So that's really been a huge shift for me to like let go of, controlling or feeling like, oh, I have to have the answer for them right now, send them exactly what they're asking me for instead of just directing them to say, hey, or even to use the terms like, hey, when you find it, can you let me know? Or like let the team know, like drop it in the chat, like just to get them into that mode has been really, really helpful.
I love that. That's really smart to even be able to recognize that, like, okay, I need to make a shift here to be able to develop leaders and take you to Emerald. That's what's going to take you to Emerald. So I love that.
It just wasn't feeling fun when I would be in momentum doing that. I felt stressed out instead of enjoying, everything that was happening and enjoying the growth. I was feeling stressed out and overwhelmed because, people, when they're new, they have a lot of questions. So instead of just being the one like always with the answer, just having them find it was freedom in that too. So it was good for everybody.
I think that's how a lot of our systems have come about too, anyways, just making sure people were doing personal growth together and intentional with what the team was growing. That's how book club started, was how can we streamline this and all get on the same page without losing minds trying to educate everyone on how to, we don't want to rewrite John Maxwell's books. So yeah, that's smart. Anybody else or any questions that you guys have? Or even anything that really just stood out to you in this whole book. They don't just have to be questions about these chapters.
I have a question because I know some people on here might, be brand new and fresh, and I'm still myself learning and growing all the time. Is how would you measure your impact beyond achievement? So how would you measure your impact with your team, your downline, your leadership, but like beyond the achievement point, like so not necessarily in numbers and in rank?
Yeah, I think you can get to diamond without having much of an impact, because you can get to diamond without having leaders. So if you get to diamond and everybody's just following you, that's where it stops, is with you. But if I look at my team, Jamie has a ton of followers, and then she can look at Sal, and Sal has a bunch of followers, and Sal has a bunch of leaders, and Jamie has a bunch of leaders, and then Brittany has a bunch of leaders, and there's leaders here and there's leaders there, and they're like everywhere. And then that is how I would say that I measure my impact, would be even just like how a church plant would be like, all right, it starts here and then that's here. And it just like kind of branches off and subdivides off. That's going to create the biggest impact. Is like that. So I don't base impact off a rank. I have always just based it strictly off of leadership, because that is lives touched. And if they're empowering, in particular women, but men too, but women to be their best selves and to love their families well, because this is all stuff that we talk about, a part of growing a plexus business, because you have to have character, you have to have integrity. Honestly, you need to be happy in your home and have happy family and kids. Otherwise, you're going to be distracted and you can't work. So that's making an impact over the whole United States, Canada, Mexico, all the places that we are.
I would say exactly what Phallin did. And I would also say relationships, because that to me, like the relationships we have here and the friendships we've formed, like our circle he was talking about, that sort of thing, it goes far beyond a rank and any paycheck and any, status or whatever. It is about so much more than that. In the relationships that we have here, which is you actually getting down in the dirt, in the mud with your people, praying for them, helping them. We had, a dear friend on our team have a tragic house fire last weekend, on Thanksgiving weekend. And, Shell and her team are gonna go help, and it's that sort of thing. It's meeting people where they're at. It's family. It's making an impact in that way. I think and that do you see what that does for your business? I mean, not that you're doing it for your business, but do you see what it does for your business when you go through stuff like that with each other and really help each other and, pray for all the things, right? It's so much more than a rank that way. So I totally agree with Val and what she said, but I also think that the relationships are just a huge part of it. We are in this together. We are sisters. We are a sisterhood. We're really just helping each other through hard stuff a lot.
That's a really good question. I'm thinking twofold of it as I'm just like processing this and really thinking about it. So on the health side of things, I think that we can measure impact when we're setting aside the ranks and the numbers and all that. We can see impact through stories. So hearing testimonies. I remember just being on the phone and crying with people because their life has changed and, all these things. So that's massive impact that, whether or not it actually accumulated at whatever point to a rank, you still have that the stories and the relationships, but you have that impact with affecting and helping someone with their health. And then I think about in terms of developing people and working with other people who want to do this business. And a lot of times when you see something in someone, going back to kind of closing that gap and seeing the potential in someone and helping call that out in someone, and they're willing to, be coachable and do some steps and learn through some things. What I love to see is not a perfect person that has it all figured out and knows all the things, but someone who's, I see the potential in and who's willing to do hard things. And when I see that, I get really excited and I see the impact from them doing hard things and things out of their comfort zone and them growing as a person and doing the things afraid. Now, the measurable results later, that might come 3 months down the road. Their rank might come 3 months down the road. The momentum might come, months or a year later. So what I see in someone and what they're doing in the moment, if it doesn't equate to immediate results, I'm not worried because I see the potential in that person and I'm excited about the impact that they are currently making in themselves and through other people. And while sometimes things might be quick, other things might come later. So I think we can see that in our business in a lot of different ways.
Wow, that was all so good. I really wanted to ask that because like even if somebody just has one or two people, what you three just shared is so rich because they could see that, they could have that, feel that impact even if they're not seeing the results. So thank you guys.
Really good question. Thank you for asking it.
Yeah, I think so often people don't even realize that the impact that they're making until years later, even just from my own experience, like things that people will say to me, or even things that Lori said or done, and we don't always be like, oh my gosh, wow, that really made an impact. We don't say those things. And sometimes we don't even realize it until later, a good bit later. So I think just knowing that, having that integrity and being a person of character and loving people well and serving them, it does make an impact. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. So after being at Ruby Retreat and seeing how you served us so well, watching the leaders from my side of the fence and watching you all pour into everyone, not only in when you were talking, but you were feeding us and you were caring for us and you were listening to us. And that's the leader I want to be. That I want people to feel loved and I want people to feel cherished. And that's what y'all do. So you're modeling it very well, and I'm paying attention.
I see you as that same leader and that same type of person. Number one, you're always smiling, and I recognize you right away as soon as we got to Ruby Retreat. So you already exude all of those things just from calls. And it continues on as authentic and exactly that person that you literally just described. So you're right there with us. I love
I
all
was
you.
gonna add something else in real quick is it happened earlier today. You never know who you've ran into so many times that will stop you and say, I don't know what it is about you, but you're always coming back into this store because you need smaller sizes. And then I just took it as a leadership role and was like, well, this is where I was. I started doing this. I started doing this. And then, oops, out my mouth straight came plexus. And I was like, didn't mean for that to happen, but it just came out. And that lady I spoke with, we've known each other for probably about 3 years. We finally just exchanged numbers. I found out that we actually have a lot of interest on similar lines. Like her daughter's middle name is my middle name. Like her mother's birthday is one of my friend's mother's birthday. Same exact day, month, everything. And I'm like, how crazy is this?
Well, that's fun. You always have to look for opportunities to open your mouth about Plexus. That is for sure. Always looking for opportunities, and people will open the door and they want help. There are so many struggling with their health, and it seems like Plexus supplements are all a part of our world, but they're not there. It's not everyone's normal. Sometimes we get lost in the world of Plexus and we feel like this is normal, but so many people are waiting to be brought into what we have. Anybody else? Does everybody feel equipped and ready to go and create leaders, or do you still have questions on how to do that or how to apply that or what to do in certain situations or anything on the topic of leadership?
I guess it's a question and a statement at the same time, but I struggle with getting to that point where I love it when Jamie talks about the way that you led her, the way that you pushed her, the way that you did that with such love. But it never would have gotten her to a point where she was Diamond if she hadn't been pushed a little bit. So that's where I need to grow exponentially in leadership, is to be able to have the mindset to push for their good and um not get caught up in, oh, I don't want to make them do something they don't want to do, you know. So I just love that you've modeled that so well.
Yeah, I would say that Jamie, and I think I just would ask you questions, like give you more ideas. I wasn't ever really telling you what to do, was I? I feel like you just
Sometimes.
sometimes did I say like you have to do this? Probably when I was telling y'all to lead calls or something, like you're gonna do it. All right, you need to do this. I think it's if you are doing what a leader should do and you're leading your team, and then you just tell your people, come and do this with me.
Mm.
And that is all you want to do is come and do this with me. So you have to be doing it yourself and then figure out how to bring them along. And if you try to bring them along and they still don't get it, kind of like trying to teach a kid how to ride a bike or one of my sons how to crawl. It's like, okay, he's not getting it. Let's try something different and let's try something else and let's try a different way of doing this. And then eventually, if somebody's hungry, then they'll get it and they will do it and they will learn. But it seemed really easy and it seemed really natural. So I don't really know what I did other than, all right, this is where we're going. And if they were following, great. If not, then I didn't really slow down. I just kept going and they caught up. they kept trying.
It was, I mean, the vision and belief is the biggest thing. And then it's like, okay, how do you be successful? You know, like I had to do things that, I mean, the basic things that were scary, like reaching out to people and posting, like that's basic, right? But like I had to be told, okay, like you need to like rip the band-aid off and just do it, you know? But then after that, it was like looking for those moments of what you see in someone and helping model that or develop it. And when you see that in someone, calling it out and calling out their potential and calling out what, I mean, Phallin was really good about, you know, not just where I was at now, but this is what you're going to do. This is who you're going to lead or how you're going to have an impact. Like she was foreshadowing things to come because of what she saw in me. So that's where the empowering comes from. And then once in a while, like, oh, as you develop people further, you can maybe have more of that closer relationship where you can be like, okay, you need to start doing this or whatever. But that's not necessarily at the beginning as much as the calling those things out. And if they can't do it, then you do it with them or, have them watch you. And then as you empower them to do it the next one, then praise them or, acknowledge them for what they've done really well. So I know we're out of time. So it's 9 o'clock. We got team call. Phallin, anything to close out here?
No, you guys, I think that sums it up. And thank you for joining us on this. And we're going to keep the resource available to be able to tag your teams and they can work through it too. So see you
Thanks,
guys later.